Hey everybody, my name's Jesse, and welcome to another edition of Gen X Thinks. And today we're going to talk about nostalgia, Gen X style. Just the other day I watched that old movie, Red Dawn, the original one, and it brought back a lot of memories. My favorite character in the movie, I can never remember the actor's name, but it was the kid that was in The Outsiders, and he in Red Dawn he drank the deer's blood. And after he drank the deer's blood, he like turned into this complete cold-blooded warrior. Yeah, that was my favorite. That was my favorite character there. Some of the best lines in that movie, as far as I'm concerned, is when that downed pilot, the Air Force pilot, he's walking past that kid, and the kid is scratching notches in the butt of his shotgun for killed enemies, and the Air Force pilot looks down and sees those notches, and he shakes his head and says, "All that hate's gonna burn you up, kid." And then the kid looks up at him and says, "It keeps me warm." I love that. I love that line. It keeps me warm. Hatred keeping him warm. And that movie is actually how I learned the definition of the word avenge. Because when the two boys, Patrick Swayze and Charlie Sheen, snuck down to see their dad, and their dad was hanging on the fence, and he says, "Avenge me!" I didn't know what avenge meant at the time, but I remember going and looking it up and finding out. It's kind of cool to remember how we learned things back then, and how we learned from movies and different ways we learned things. But I specifically remember that's how I learned that word, the definition of that word. I'd never heard it before. And of course, you can't talk about the original Red Dawn without saying Wolverines. You got to put that in there somewhere, or it's not authentic. It's not authentic. I've been saying that to my wife for I don't know how long, the entire time we've been married, probably. And just when I just watched this movie recently, a day or two ago, I just found out she had never seen the movie. So she just now learned why I've been yelling Wolverines at her for the last 10 years. It's their school mascot, Wolverines. But it just cracked me up. She'd never seen it before, but I'm teaching her. And the other movie I watched is Point Break. Point Break's a good one. The original one, I think they redid that one too, if I'm not mistaken. But I watched the one with Patrick Swayze, another Patrick Swayze movie, and Keanu Reeves. This is right after Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, so Keanu is still pretty much a kid, you know. The thing about that movie is that there's a scene in that movie where they're staking out a bank, and Gary Busey's sitting in the car, and Keanu Reeves is going to go get sandwiches. And Gary Busey says, "Yeah, I want one. I'm hungry enough to eat the ass end out of a dead rhino." Now, as a kid, a 12, 13-year-old kid, whatever, watching that movie, I thought he said, "I'm hungry enough to eat the ass end out of a dead wino." With a W. Yeah. So for decades, I thought he said wino, because that was just the first word I heard. So every time I watched it, then I heard wino, and I thought that was hardcore. I thought Gary Busey was hardcore. He'd eat the ass end out of a dead wino. I just, that's back before we had the subtitles and stuff like we do now. The only time you saw subtitles was when the words were in a different language or something, and they needed to translate it to English on a VCR tape. You didn't get to choose subtitles like we do now. Now, though, I watch that movie and I can see that he said rhino. Yeah, that movie, that's a really good movie too. Just fun movie, you know. Patrick Swayze's the Zen bank robber, the dead president. That's pretty cool. And to change the subject to music, I was thinking about that. And I don't know, I wonder if it's like that for everybody else, but the way I remember music and feel about it now, the music of the 80s and from, 70s, 80s, and partly the 90s. That kind of music, just whenever I hear it, I feel it inside. I feel, either energetic or whatever. I like, yeah. I mean, in music before that and after that time period surrounding the 80s does not have the same effect on me. I mean, I can listen to Def Leppard now, Pyromania, Hysteria, and still that shit gets me juiced up. And Guns N' Roses, Sweet Child of Mine. I don't know. Maybe it's the nostalgic effect. Maybe it's bringing back a lot of memories or whatever. But it has hearing that music has an effect on me. And there are some other songs outside that time frame that do the same thing, but very few. Like before, but from a song from the 50s or 40s or something called 16 Tons by Tennessee Ernie Ford. That song gets me, gives me feeling, gives me a reaction. It elicits a reaction from me inside. But not much music from earlier does. There's a few others, but not many. And same thing with later music. There are a few songs that I really like, but not many. It's that era of music that really, pretty much anything. I even hear a Madonna or a Cyndi Lauper song, and and I'm pretty sure that's nostalgia. But still, it brings up feelings. And one of the first cassette tapes that I bought for myself, and I actually took it to basic training with me, was Warrant, Cherry Pie. And I can probably sing along with every single song on that thing because that's the only tape I had, the only cassette tape I had during basic training the whole time. And I just listened to it over and over and over. And every time I hear that term Cherry Pie, that song plays in my head from Warrant. Yeah. That song brings back a lot of memories for me, basic training and whatnot. Music definitely means more from that time period. So I don't know if it is for everybody, but it does for me. And on another topic, video games, I used to go to a store and the only arcade box they had in there was Frogger, and I would play that game even though I hated it. I didn't like Frogger. It was stupid. It was just a dumb game. You're taking a frog and trying to get it across the traffic. I don't know. I didn't like that game even as a kid, but I played it anyway because it was the only video game to play. And like I told you before, I didn't have, consoles at home and stuff when I was a little kid. So the only time I got to experience video games was at a store or something, and if I had a quarter in my pocket, and I would not pass it up even if it was a game I didn't like. But I don't know how many of y'all played games you didn't like, you knew you hated it, but you were going to play it anyway because it was a video game. Because back then video games were ours. No other generation played video games. The older generations did not want anything to do with video games. Those were ours. Gen X, us kids, that was ours. Video games. Nobody else could lay claim to them. Nobody else wanted to mess with them, just us. And I think that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. And I'll leave you there. If you enjoyed this video, please take a second and like, subscribe, and comment. If you'd like to support the channel, you can do so by pushing the thanks button down below. If you do that, I really appreciate it. Thank you very much. Or you can do so by buying me a cup of coffee, and I'll leave you that link down in the description. If you're interested in Gen X gear, you can hop over to Redbubble, and I'll leave that link down in the description as well. There's some pretty cool stuff over there that I think you might enjoy. And if you don't want to or can't support the channel in any of those ways, you can always do so by sharing these videos on your social media. That helps out a lot, and thank you very much if you do take the time to do that. I appreciate it. And if you have any suggestions for future episodes of Gen X Thinks, please put those down in the comments. I enjoy doing those. They're a lot of fun, and I think it brings us together more as a community and I want to get your ideas up here as well and discuss your ideas as well as my own. If you have any ideas like that, let me know. And as always, stay frosty, Gen X, and I'll see you on the next one.